Championship just a fortnight ago, and now she's got to go through it all again with Alex Lowes. Can he repeat what his twin brother did a couple of weeks ago and end up as a champion? Well, it's between him and Shaky Byrne. We'd like to compliment our television director, Richard Coventry, because dear Cov's 96th consecutive British Superbike meeting, and he guessed it right when he said that Brands Hatch dates from 1926, so he's learning from me at last. When it was first used as a cycle race track, and a couple of years later motorcyclists started using it as a motorcycle scrambles course. And would you believe it, by 1936 there were 30,000 people coming regularly to see grass track racing around this 1 mile circuit. It got tarmacked after the Second World War, and we're still enjoying brilliant motorcycle racing here. The MCE British Superbike Championship, the final 3 races of the 26 race series. Shaky Byrne with a 1-point advantage over Alex Lowes. James Ellison in 3rd place, ahead of Josh Brooks on pole position. James Westmoreland and Yuichi Kianari, who's absent. John Kirkham runs in 7th place, 19 points ahead of Tommy Bridewell, with PJ Jacobson 9th and Chris Walker 10th. 11th place for Peter Hickman on the Lloyd's British GB Moto Honda, ahead of Keith Farmer, Dan Linfoot, the second of the GB Moto Hondas. Josh Waters qualifying strongly for Halsall Racing Kawasaki, ahead of Jakob Smertz, Paget's Honda. Howie Mainwaring, Matteo Baiocco on the Rapido Sport Racing Ducati, Michael Rutter, Barry Burrell, and Carl Harris, another strong contender after qualifying on the second row of the grid here. Beautiful conditions at Brands Hatch. The track is remaining obstinately wet. Josh Brooks finally nails pole position. Shaky Byrne 2nd, Alex Lowes 3rd. The 2 contenders side by side. Second row, an astonishing one. Josh Waters, Carl Harris, and the second Halsall Racing Kawasaki of Lee Costello. The 3rd row, headed by Dan Linfoot from James Westmoreland and PJ Jacobson. And the 4th row, Matteo Baiocco, Jakob Smertz, Michael Rutter. The gloves are off. We're ready to race here at Brands Hatch to decide the first serious step along the route of the destiny of the MCE Insurance British Superbike Championship in association with Pirelli for 2013. Number 22, Alex Lowes. Number 68, Carl Harris. In the middle of picture, and to the right, you saw that man, Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki's defending champion, Shaky Byrne. On the right-hand side of picture, the man on pole position. Look at the legs stretching back from number 2, Josh Brooks, angled towards that early apex to protect his line into Paddock Hill Bend. This is going to be some race. 27 riders on the grid. When the lights go out, we're off. Josh Brooks gets a clean start on the Taiko Suzuki, but look how strong Shaky Byrne was from his inside, and it's Shaky Byrne who grabs the racing line into Paddock Hill Bend with the Halsall Kawasaki's following him through. I reckon it's a Halsall Kawasaki 2-3. Alex Lowes slips back to 5th place in the initial rush off the line, 18 laps ahead, and James Westmoreland says that this kidney-shaped original Brands Hatch Indy circuit is absolutely lethal.
Yeah, you can see that. Did you see Alex Lowes lighting up the rear coming out of Druids there? And that's what they're saying. It's this Indy circuit. The thing is, you know, they're used for different things. The long circuit's never hardly used. The short circuit, this bit is used a lot. Every single day, track days, car launches, etc. So the grip levels alter.
And as they disappear over the hilltop, Shaky Byrne in 2nd place, Josh Waters right behind him in 3rd place. He feels he hasn't done himself justice this season. The double Australian Superbike champion out to prove a point, as we see his teammate Lee Costello nabbed by Alex Lowes as they go up the hill into Hawthorne Bend.
Yeah, and it always amazes me how different tracks dry. You know, if this was Assen with the same sunshine on it and same wind, it would be dry by now.
Since the rain stopped, the breeze has really kicked up, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you can see how low the sunshine is as they come along the Minter Straight. Look how wet it is there under the trees, dropping down to Stirling's Bend. So on the first lap of 18, this the first of 3 races across this weekend, remember, to decide the outcome of the British Superbike Championship. And at the moment, the leader, Josh Brooks, has taken off at the front on the Taiko Racing Suzuki. There he goes, keeling round onto the Brabham Straight. He completes the first lap with a ball wave of water ahead of Shaky Byrne, Josh Waters, Alex Lowes, Lee Costello next up, Chris Walker, always a bit of a devil in damp conditions, in 6th place ahead of Jacobson. Ellison's come through from 14th to 8th on the first lap for Milwaukee Kawasaki. Milwaukee Yamaha, I beg its pardon. And Linfoot's got a shocking start after qualifying so well. He's back in 9th place. Carl Harris back in 10th.
Waters.
And Waters tackling. I thought that he would have a go at Shaky Byrne because he seems pretty confident at the moment.
And that's at the corner that we've seen about 15 crashes today. Now that Graham Hill bend is lethally slippery.
So the quiet man, Wildman Waters, 26-year-old from Mildura in Australia, trying to tackle the current British champion, Shaky Byrne, on the Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki. Alex Lowe's, and we've got a fall at that. Oh, it's someone who's fit.
That's Jimmy Poole, I think.
I think it's David Lenortner.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It might be David Lenortner who was making his first appearance on the Motordeck Spearmint Rhino BMW. Make of that equation what you will.
It was a BM.
Josh Brooks leading the way, and it is then that play. Oh no, it's at the end of the Cooper Straight. Well, and it was David Lenortner who dropped the BMW. Meanwhile, at the front, Alex Lowe's pressing onto the back wheel of Josh Waters. So this is an intriguing contest now. Brooks with a 1.29 second advantage, but what's happening here? We've got Byrne, Waters, and Alex Lowe's has closed the gap and must have set a much faster lap than those two on that lap as he gets onto the back wheel of the Halsall Racing Kawasaki. Brooks has crossed the line. 138.315, 2.3 second advantage. He's pulled another second on that lap, but also a fast lap for Alex Lowe's as he closes up on the two riders in front of him.
Yeah, you've just got to wonder when you're lapping sort of a second and a half quicker than everybody else in the race, especially when you're talking about people like Lowe's and Byrne.
So Shaky Byrne there. It was interesting when you spoke to him on the grid, James. Suddenly there were nerves showing through there, and that's a pretty rare thing for Shaky.
It is, and that's why I didn't want to stay talking to him, just because it's not fair. You know, he's got to concentrate on what he's doing. I didn't want to say too much to Alex or to Shaky. Let him get on with the job.
I can't imagine what you would have been like. Did you ever have people coming round and trying to quiz you before you went off on a race?
Yes, there was television back then, but it was black and white.
Alex Lowe's plunges through and plunders 3rd place as they launch over the top of Hawthorne Hill and along the Minter Straight. So Alex Lowe's, look at the sun in their eyes with their clear visors at that point. I beg your pardon, the sun's just gone in. It was in their eyes on the last lap.
It was, yeah. It really was bright.
And the amount of rainwater, if you like, that's spraying up from those back wheels. So Alex Lowe's now has his eye on that figure. Now remember, James, the person who finishes ahead between those two will lead the championship at the end of this race.
Absolutely, yeah. Just 1 point between them, so yeah, the difference between 2nd and 3rd will make the difference.
Javier Beltran was saying that number 22, Alex Lowe's, on that blue Samsung Honda, hadn't been too happy with the general bike setup and feel of things during the course of this weekend so far.
Yeah,
but you know what a racer he is when he gets out there and the flag drops. Yeah,
do you know, sometimes you go to a place, you're nervous, championship at stake, it's been building up for quite a while now. The bike can be exactly the same, but you're just not happy with it because you're not as loose, you're not as relaxed with it. The bike can feel different, even though you've been here already this year before and you've got a setup that you think is going to work. What I'm saying is it might be Alex's kind of, the way he's riding, that's making the difference.
It's interesting seeing Shaky Byrne at the moment 5 points ahead if it stays like this, which is far from assured. But also you'll notice that Josh Brooks, bless him, will be out of the equation because he'll be more than 50 points behind the leaders with 50 points left on the board. Even if he wins this race.
Yeah.
And Brooks is Lowe's again. He's had those moments before today during qualifying, James.
Yeah, that's the corner that's been catching everybody out.
Josh Brooks says that what's disappointing for him this season is that it mirrors the previous seasons he's had with Taiko Suzuki, of kind of consistency, podiums, but not quite enough to nail the championship.
Now that's it, and you know, if I were him, I'd be disappointed because we all know how much talent Josh has. And you've got to admire the way he goes about his racing. You know, he's determined, almost to the point of kind of a bit of madness sometimes, you know what I mean? And I love that. I love the way he's prepared to push and battle and get on with the job, really.
Shaky Byrne versus Alex Lowe's. They're running 2nd and 3rd in the race as they complete 4 of 18 laps. Ahead of them, the gap still 2.2 seconds towards Josh Brooks, although they did lap a bit quicker. Yeah. They're catching up. There is Josh Brooks leading the way into Druids Hill Bend. Sorry, Druids Bend. I've been told off for calling it Druids Bend. I beg your pardon, Nicky. And then Shaky Byrne, Alex Lowe's, the battle going on in second and third place. Remember 2 years ago here, in rather kinder conditions, it was Shaky leading the race, but not in the championship, if you like.
Yeah.
And behind him, it was John Hopkins versus Tommy Hill. And Shaky could do nothing about his championship position, but he was very keen to find out who had actually got the line across the line first once he was on his slowing down lap. And Josh Waters staying very much with those two. He's lapping 38.47, exactly the same time as Alex Lowe's on that lap. Brooks leads. We're on the 5th lap of 18. Josh Brooks, who will be going back to enjoy the Australian summer. It says his first project is the rebuilding of a CR500 1988 Honda motocross bike, but he's also got a brand new 1986 Honda Trike. Remember that?
Oh, that won't be dangerous then.
He's looking forward to getting that out in the desert.
That's it, banned those things. They were really popular at one point, you know. I had one and we used to go to the beach with it. Mine was a Yamaha. But they have a tendency to bite you on the backside, they do.
I'm sure Josh will be looking forward to it. He says the first thing, though, will be jet ski. Straight to the beach for an outing on the jet ski. And this is the battle going on between Shaky. These guys, will they feel like they're riding on glass at times or ice?
Yeah,
it must be very. You can see the dry patches just beginning to sneak through, James.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
look at this. Jacobson's through. Jacobson 99 ahead now of Halsnell Racing's Costello. There's Ellison still trying to make progress. There's Linfoot leading that batch of riders. Behind him he's got Tommy Bridewell from way back on the grid, Michael Rutter, James Westmoreland and John Kirkham.
Yeah, you were asking about conditions, and yeah, it's slippy, we know that. It's quite slippy in some places and not as slippy in others, which is always difficult as a rider to sort of read those grip levels. But yeah, to be dicing for a championship in these conditions, not ideal. And the reason is because it's so easy to run off line, make a mistake, touch a white line, get it just slightly wrong when it's wet, and you can go down the road, and we don't want a championship decided that way.
Lee Costello having a brave ride in 6th place, crossing horns with crossing swords, dare I say, with Chris Walker. 6th and 7th. This, the battle ahead of them between, and look, the sun once again straight into their eyes as they drop into Westfield. Josh Brooks, number 2, leading the way. And Shaky Burns just edged away slightly on the snap from Alex Lowe's.
Yep. Those four are actually miles in front of everybody else, about 6 seconds back to Jacobson from Waters in 4th.
And as they go through under the shadow of the trees there, still entirely wet conditions as they motor through towards the Clearways and Clark Corner complex. And this is where it just begins to dry out a smidgen as they're coming to the sunshine. There it is, the glowing autumn sunshine here.
It's all about feel, you know, and it's all about, you know, if you're Alex Lowe's, you want to get on the throttle a bit early, get the bike driving. You know, if you do, it'll get it sliding, you'll go nowhere. So you've got to be quite patient in these conditions. You know, when there's somebody just sneaking away in front of you, you've got to try and regroup and feel instead of just thinking, right, I'll go a bit quicker.
James, you've echoed just what Josh Brooks really articulately described to me about the fact that all the tricker bits of a motorcycle and how much flex you've got in the rear swing arm and stuff like that all kind of count for fairly much nothing when it gets wet. It's your relation of the feel of the rear tyre to the throttle that counts for everything.
The reason is all that flex in the chassis and the swing arm flex and the geometry and all that matters in the drive because you're pushing you've got enough grip to have that been a factor. These conditions, the overriding thing is the lack of grip. So it's just about how much of that you can make. So it is about feel, yeah.
And he said, so to him, it was no real surprise, for example, that you got 3 almost unknown quantities on the second row of the grid.
Because it's different things that are making the difference.
So dropping down into Dingle Dell, Josh Brooks there goes out of frame left. This, the tantalising dice. Remember 2 years ago how it seemed like things weren't quite happening in the race. Josh Brooks has set the fastest lap, incidentally, with a 1:37.804. And between, as I recall, between Hopkins and Hill. And here the same thing. You've got this tension that you could almost feel between second and third places. That number 67, Shaky Byrne, and the man he's racing against for the title. I tell you, you touched on it earlier, but one of the things that will be a problem for these riders now is the sun. The sun's not such an issue when the track's dry because you don't get that reflection from it.
So this is going to be a problem. Certainly not there because it's coming from the side, but along the bottom straight, which is pointing directly into it, and the Minter straight, where you mentioned it before. And that's it, when the track's really wet, it's like looking at a dazzling mirror.
And of course they're wearing clear visors because they need them when it gets rather darker, don't they, and the rain threatens. So there it is. Look at this. Shaky Byrne now has Alex Lowe's right with him. There's a dry line.
There's a dry line, Jack. The problem with this is it's dry in places and absolutely sodden wet and never going to dry in others. You know, it's not going to be where there's a dry line all the way around.
We're on the 8th lap of 18 here at Brands Hatch around the full Grand Prix circuit. Shaky Byrne versus Alex Lowe's. Ahead of them by 2.5 seconds, Josh Brooks, and just behind them by 1.4 seconds, Josh Waters. So they're sandwiched between two Australian Superbike champions having their own battle for the British Superbike Championship. Shaky responds and just seems to be able to just pull out that extra length or two.
One of the things in conditions like this is you've got to get a slide and prick to the back of your mind and keep pushing on. You know, it's dead easy to get a slide and think, oh, that's the limit, I'll back off. You know, naturally you back off. You don't want to end up on your backside, but you've got to be able to get through that and feel for where there is grip.
There's number 2, Josh Brooks, crossing some of the dry patches as he squirrels his way into Paddock Hill Bend. Dropping down the hill behind the dueling championship contenders goes Josh Waters. Then PJ Jacobson has pulled the second Taiko Suzuki clear of this battle between Lee Costello and Chris Walker. And there is Tommy Bridewell getting the better of his teammate James Ellison and dropping down Paddock Hill Bend into 8th place.
Yeah, it's Costello and Walker. That's Bridewell. And Ellison's going backwards. That's Westwood.
James seems really detuned.
He does, yeah.
He didn't defend that line at all.
He didn't.
I wonder if he's got a problem. Because
he's definitely got a problem, I would say, Jack.
Because Michael Rutter drops downhill past him. So problems then for James Ellison. He'll lose that 3rd place in the championship with Josh Brooks leading the way should Josh win this race or indeed finish anywhere near the front as Ellison slips back out of the top 10. Josh Brooks leads the way. This man in 2nd place, the vastly experienced 36-year-old Shaky Byrne, former, British Championship racer, obviously, but MotoGP racer, World Superbike racer, back to British Superbikes and looking for that 4th record-breaking title that would take him ahead of Yuichi Kianari and Neil Mackenzie.
Yeah, strange career, you know, Shane Byrne. Clearly had the talent, for me, to win at World Superbike level, but never really did it at a time that suited him or on a bike that was competitive at the time. And I think, for me, this is no disrespect to him at all, but quite underachieved through no fault of his own at world level. I mean, he's won World Superbike rounds when he was on a domestic Ducati.
Yeah.
Won twice here, you know, and beat everybody easily.
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was the year that was the bike that took him to his first British Superbike Championship title, and it was also racing for Paul Bird Motorsport on the Monster Mob Ducati. And here he is on Paul Bird's Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki. And they really are treating that very, very cautiously, coming down the hill through Graham Hill Bend. But suddenly Alex Lowe's picks up the pace along the Cooper Straight. He's looking keen to find a way through. James, what about, I know it sounds a bit dumb, but you don't have windscreen wipers on these visors. How does Lowe's deal with that? The little bit of kind of aberration of his vision that he's going to suffer.
It's the same reason that aircraft don't have windscreen wipers. It's because it's a curved surface and the wind blows the drips. So what the best thing you can do is use some silicone treatment on it, and that just makes the water bead like you can't believe. It just disappears off your visor. It's not a problem. It's actually stuff happening on the inside of your visor that's a big problem in these conditions, not the outside.
I'm just wondering if that could be Ellison's problem, because he had that steaming up problem during qualifying.
Well, if it is, and it's happened a 2nd time, there's no excuse, I've got to say.
He went across the line in 11th place, by the way, James Ellison, behind Michael Rutter. And,
Carlos is out.
And Harris had I thought he dropped rather savagely downfield. I thought there must be some problem for him to go back quite that fast. What a shame. So too is Howie Mainwaring on the Qingdao WK Bikes Kawasaki. Josh Brooks crosses the line. And that is 10 laps complete out of 18. These are the 2 men battling for 2nd place and the championship lead. 3.6 seconds astern of Brooks. Josh Waters crosses the line, a comfortable 4th. for the Halsall Kawasaki team. Once again, there are points on this track where Lowe's closes up.
Correct, and it's the slippy, treacherous Indy part of the circuit. This is a section that's caught everybody out, but this is a section where Lowe's is able to just push on a little bit, stick his neck out, and get right onto the back wheel of Shane Byrne. The problem is, you just saw it there from Alex Lowe's. To pass, you've got to go off that drying line, and that's obviously less grip.
So even on these super sticky tyres, that's going to create problems for him. And Surtees is obviously tricky, James, because he just can't get close enough to get the drive out and stay with Shaky at this point.
That's it. I tell you what we might see happening, you know. This is a classic case where on the straights running offline to get into the water to cool your tyres so they don't wear out on the drier parts of the track, because these are really soft wet with the tyres and they will wear out pretty quick when it dries out. What a contrasting
Fortunes for Milwaukee Yamaha. Jacobson has been overtaken by Bridewell, who's having a storming ride through the field. Ellison is now back to 13th place behind Linfoot and Kirkham. This is number 22. He's gone nowhere except forward to third place so far. Alex Lowe's keeping the pressure on Shaky Byrne. Byrne soaking the pressure up as Brooks cruises down the hill. I beg his pardon, into Paddock Hill Bend. He's lapping 137.5. These two lapping 137.8. So he's still edging away now, 4 seconds clear at the front. Fascinating exercise in judging your pace, James, at the front when you're kind of governing a race like this, but you don't want to overstep the mark, do you, in treacherous conditions?
No, and it's easy done. You know, I always think if it's wet and you've got somebody disappearing putting 2 seconds lap into people, it's pretty much too quick. We've seen that before, and you don't want to go down the road with an 8-second lead going away. You know, it's just...
This is Bridewell. Watch this, James.
Yeah, Bridewell.
On Costello.
On Costello, and Neely Walker as well while I was at it. That's at Dingledale and up into Sheens.
So that's how Tommy Bridewell's making progress, James. Very impressively, you have to say.
Yeah, and we can see now that it is getting quite dry. You know, and these wet tyres will get hot really quick. 200 odd horsepower going through them, coming out the corners, it's trying to spin, it's trying to twist the rubber there, and they will start wearing out.
By the way, our caption's been corrected because Bridewell is 7th now. I had him up to 5th place, which I did think was a little bit exceptional. But the way in which they wear, do they kind of turn into chewing gummy stuff, or do they just simply lose their grip and slide around a lot?
Both. They actually, it'll pull the knob, like almost knobbly, big raised chunks and ridges of rubber, and when they've got all that power going through, spinning the wheel, it wears them out.
Big moment there for Alex Lowe's, James, as he came through the Clark curve and the front end twitched.
And that's what I was saying. You know, you've got to be prepared in these conditions to put up with that and not have it affect your lap time, which, you know, at this level you're brave lads anyway, but just to forget that and let's go again is not such an easy thing to do.
There's the comparison in lap times, and there's just fractions in it, lap after lap. These two just setting such a high standard ahead of them, still by about well, actually, they were the same lap times on that lap, Brooks and Byrne. So Josh Brooks, this is Bridewell, past Walker this time.
Yep.
So Thomas George Bridewell the second, riding strongly for Milwaukee Yamaha.
You see how he got quickly back onto that dry? He nicked that dry line back once he got past Walker. Nice riding that, because he didn't do it too early and caused Walker any issues there.
So there is the gap once again between the dashing young electrician from Lincolnshire. There he is, number 22 on the blue Samsung Honda, Alex Lowe's. Ahead of him, the elder statesman, if you like, Shaky Byrne. Josh Brooks there.
And this is a bit of the track that Shane Byrne is quick. All the fast-flowing, longer part of the track.
Shaky Byrne had his first race ever at Brands Hatch in 1996 when he was relatively old, really, like 18, 19 years old, and won it. So he's been used to winning at Brands Hatch for an awful long time.
On a Suzuki RGV, two-stroke, I think, if I'm...
That's it.
Right.
It was indeed, yes.
Here comes Lowe's, he's having a bit of a look now. And this is the bit of the track that Lowe's is good on. Completely different character. You can see the dry line appearing on several corners now.
Now, I think Alex is in a better position to launch an attack than he's been all race, James. He's in a position here, but I think along the Cooper Straight, he'll be having a look as they get past the treacherous bit here, hopefully at Graham Hill Bend. Oh, he'll be so keen to get the power on early because he's already had a bit of a look along the Cooper Straight towards Surtees.
He has.
Making this move up the inside, and he's going to try and do it again.
Yeah.
He dashes through, moves across to try and grab what passes for a drier line, and he moves crucially through into second place ahead of Shaky Byrne. Now the battle's on.
Yeah.
We're on the 14th lap of 18, just past two-thirds race distance. Alex Lowe's bags that second place, and with it the lead in the championship. It's as simple and straightforward as that.
Exactly, we are seeing the championship unfolding before us here.
So Alex Lowe's, the dashing twin brother of Sam, who's of course contesting the final round of the World Supersport Championship in Jerez this weekend. Look at that, 3 points in the lead in the championship if he can hang on to this position.
Well, I think Alex Lowe's must think he can crack on and go, because you wouldn't necessarily pass, you know, in these conditions. You'd sit behind, you'd save your tyres, you'd weigh it up.
James Ellison has retired the Milwaukee Yamaha. Hugely disappointing conclusion to Saturday here at Brands Hatch for Ellison. He's got to now regroup and look forward to tomorrow's two races. Oh, once again, Alex Lowe's has a snaky moment as he powers out of the Clark curve from Clearways. And here comes Shaky Byrne. He almost got the drive up the Brabham Straight, but not quite enough. And he has a moment himself as the load goes light over the crest of Paddock Hill Bend.
Lowe's went in quick there, you know, and he ran off the dry line. Lowe's is risking certain things here, in my opinion, obviously.
They're both risking a lot, aren't they, right now? This is a really crucial race going on. There's Jacobson in fifth, Bridewell 2.5 seconds behind. Let's check the lap times. Bridewell 38.4, Jacobson 38.8. Thomas George could yet actually be trying to get a sniff of a top 5 position here against the American. Meanwhile, Alex Lowe's and Shaky Byrne still neck and neck for this second place. Norrie Hager's moved into the points on the second Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki. He's now 12th, ahead of John Kirkham, Keith Hickman and Freddie Foray in the points on the second of the Samsung Hondas.
Really, when you see something like of the quality of Hager slugging around in 12th, you just think, well, that's not right.
Not only, I know, but then you look at 15th Foray, and behind him, just out of the points, Jakob Smertz, Matteo Biocco, Danny De Boer.
Yeah, but Hager, you know, championship contender for years and years and years, race winner in every condition. You know, you just think, I don't know. I think he ought to be getting a different hobby myself, but well, you know what I mean.
Josh Brooks, meantime, he's got plenty of hobbies going. He's currently 4.5 seconds clear. Josh Brooks leads the way, crosses the line now. And Alex Lowe's flashes across the line on the Samsung Honda. He's got a 0.3 of a second advantage, a crucial 0.3 of a second over Shaky Byrne. Byrne's just beginning to lose contact now with the young Lincolnshireman.
Lowe's quickest lap of his race, 37.7, and that was quicker. That's 0.3 quicker than Brooks went in the lead that last lap.
Barry Burrells entered the pits on the Quattro Plant Kawasaki, so bye-bye to the man from Bishop Auckland for this race. His teammate Walker in 7th place, ahead of James Westmoreland. Lee Costello is now 9th, but still looking promising for his first ever top 10 finish for Halsall Racing Kawasaki. Michael Rutter is 0.3 of a second behind him, but then there's clear space back to Linfoot, Hager and Kirkham.
And I tell you what, Lowe's is looking good here. I think you're right. I think he is stretching Byrne. I don't think Byrne can do a lot about this.
Alex Lowe's cracked the 1:38 barrier for the first time on the last lap. 1:37.76, his fastest lap of the race. Other fastest laps of the race, Westmoreland in 8th, Costello in 9th, and Norrie Hager, would you believe, in 12th. Too little, too late.
Must have heard me.
Doesn't want another hobby. And suddenly Alex Lowe's is galvanising. He's on the 16th of 18 laps. You can see Josh Brooks up the track ahead of him. Surely he wouldn't be tempted to give chase.
Absolutely not. Not even Alex Lowe's.
So Alex Lowe's has, if he nails this second place, which he's got 2 laps left, he's ridden a forceful and so far safe and dependable race. It would put him 3 points in the lead in the MCE Insurance British Superbike Championship with 2 races left. Josh Brooks onto the 17th of 18 laps.
Fastest lap of the race, 36.9 by Lowe's.
Wow, that was quick.
Second and a half quicker than Brooks. He's not going to do that in 2 hours, is he?
Well, I wouldn't put it past him. Suddenly, look at him. Oh, he is just going for this. Alex Lowes is eating up Josh Brook's advantage. And look at the difference in body language between Lowes and Byrne as they went round Druids Bend then.
I just don't want him to get too confident in places like this. This is Graham Hill Bend. It slid again there. Oof, he's loose.
Alex
He looks
Lowes,
happy, I've got to say.
He looks extremely content, doesn't he?
You know, when it's drying out and you're on wets, you get a lot of movement, so sometimes it's not even a slide, it's just like the thing's spinning and moving around a little bit because the tyres are so soft. Looks more alarming than what it feels on the bike sometimes.
Josh Brooks leads the way. So in that, already picking up half a second in the early stages of that lap. Look at the gap shriveling. Oh, Alex, what a performance. Beautiful. This is. Alex Lowes absolutely on it here. Finished fourth in the British Superbike Championship last year and on the WFR Honda with his first victories at Silverstone, but a double DNF here at Brands Hatch. Well, it doesn't look like he's in danger of that right now, but going into the last lap, he is sniffing a potential victory, and Shaky Byrne, he could see his championship chances just slipping gently out of the back door. But of course, we've got 2 races tomorrow. It's all to play for, but look at this. Alex is going for this.
Shane Byrne will be looking at what's happening in front of him and think, go on, Josh, just win, please.
Josh Brooks goes on to the final lap, 38.0 against 36.76. He's got a 1.3 second advantage.
That's just about enough.
Just about be enough if neither of these two crack under the pressure.
Is Lowes confident enough to have a go at the win here?
Yes, I think he is. He was 1.3 seconds quicker on the last lap. He's 1.3 seconds behind, or he was when he crossed the finishing line. There's Josh Brooks, the 38-year-old Australian, looking for what would be, I think, his 3rd victory of the season. He won the first race here at Brands Hatch back in July. He won the 3rd race at Alton Park also in early August. He's looking for his 3rd race victory here. He'd love to finish off the season on a high.
I think he's going to do.
He's got Alex Lowes to contend with. Lowes will, of course, start the 2nd race of the weekend tomorrow from pole position.
Unless it's some lap by Brooks, which it doesn't look like it is, because Lowes is actually catching him with every corner here.
Dropping down into Dingle-Dell. Josh Brooks, Taiko Suzuki versus Alex Lowes, Samsung Honda. Who would have believed that Lowes could make a race of it like this? But I think Brooks has got it fairly much tied up at this point. He's got the advantage he needs to head along. This is the only straight that's not named. Whittam Straight, dropping underneath the MC Insurance Bridge into Clearways, dropping right into the Clark Curve. It surely is going to be victory for the 3rd time this year. The first race of the weekend goes to Josh Brooks, Taiko Suzuki. 2nd place, that'll do, thank you, for Alex Lowes on the Samsung Honda. He takes a 3-point lead in the championship over the defending champion, number 67, Shaky Byrne, on the Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki. What a conclusion to the race, and what a ride by Josh Waters, the new boy in the Halsall Racing Kawasaki squad. The Australian Superbike champion takes 4th place on bike number 21. Behind him, it should still be PJ Jacobson. It is crossing the line ahead of Tommy Bridewell. Look at the battles going on the edge of the top 10 here. There's John Kirkham, there is Jakob Smerch, sandwiched between them, number 60, Peter Hickman. We've already had Walker, Westphal and Costello, 9th best result of the year for him. Rutter, Hager, Linfoot, Freddie Foray has somehow fed his way through that group to snatch 13th place ahead of John Kirkham and Peter Hickman, who got the last championship point for the Lloyd's British GB Moto team. But number 2, Josh Brooks, is the winner. And look at that, James, an average speed of a whisker under 90 miles an hour in treacherous conditions.
Yeah.
So Josh Brooks wins the battle, but the war has definitely taken a swing towards Alex Lowes, because he has taken a 3-point lead in the MCE Insurance British Superbike Championship after a spirited ride, setting fastest lap on, I think, what was his last lap, 1:36.76 seconds. That will put him on pole position for the first race tomorrow. A mouth-watering prospect, I think, whatever the conditions. Shaky Byrne, I would suggest, would be hoping that we could have a dry race tomorrow without these iffy conditions. James, I know that you have some you and a gentleman outside there earlier today seemed to have some extremely accurate weather forecast at your fingertips.
just because it was detailed doesn't mean it's accurate, Jack.
Brands Hatch Grand Prix Circuit, race 1 of the last round of the MCE Insurance British Superbike Championship. Josh Brooks takes victory from Alex Lowes, who manages a spirited and successful assault on his championship rival, Shaky Byrne. 4th place for Halsell Racing, Josh Waters. PJ Jacobson takes 5th. Tommy Bridewell from way back on the grid. 6th place for Milwaukee Yamaha, ahead of Chris Walker's Quattro Plat Kawasaki. James Westmoreland, build-based BMW. Lee Costello, best result of the year for the rookie from Bolton. And Michael Rutter, the old warhorse on the Batham's Honda, in 10th place, ahead of Norrie Hager, Dan Linfoot. Freddie Foray poked his way through from outside the points. The world endurance champion twice over takes 13th place ahead of John Kirkham and Peter Hickman. And just missing out on the points, Jakob Smertz, Matteo Baiocco, Danny de Boer, Aaron Zanotti and Martin Jessup. The championship standings, after 24 of 26 races, Alex Lowes now takes a championship lead by 3 points ahead of Shaky Byrne. Josh Brooks moves past James Ellison, who celebrated his 130th British Superbike Championship, not in the style he would have liked, into 3rd place. James Westmoreland in 5th, Yuichi Kianari in 6th. John Kirkham has his advantage in 7th place cut to 11 points by Tommy Bridewell, riding his 120th British Superbike race. PJ Jacobson is 9th and Chris Walker 10th. 11th place for Peter Hickman, ahead of Keith Farmer. Josh Waters now just 5 points behind Farmer, ahead of Linfoots, Smertz, Mainwaring, Baiocco, Rutter, Burrell and Lee Costello. This was how it looked off the start. Josh Brooks initially got the drive, but Shaky Byrne outgunned him to Paddock Hill Bend, hit the apex first and grabbed the early advantage. Josh Waters, a brilliant start from the second row of the grid, carried the other Australian through to 2nd place. But Josh Brooks straight away was that little bit more forthright up Haywood Hill. He grabbed the advantage of Shaky Byrne and was never to be headed for the rest of the race. He opened up a substantial gap. Down went David Lenortner, making his first appearance, the 22-year-old Austrian, in the British Superbike Series. And then it was between Shaky Byrne and number 22, Alex Lowes. They duelled, they diced. It was like they were on an umbilical cord, a super extendable umbilical cord. It was coming, it was going like a piece of elastic band. And for tantalising lap after tantalising lap, Shaky Byrne just held the advantage, extending it at times and other times having Alex force his way back onto his back wheel. Josh Brooks, meantime, very gradually eased out an advantage. Tommy Bridewell having a thunderous ride from the mid-pack in his 120th appearance in BSB. Got the Milwaukee Yamaha in amongst the top 10 and finally burst his way past number 9, Chris Walker, on the Quattro Plat Kawasaki himself. No mug in damp conditions. So a lot of racing going on for the points, and then this move by Alex Lowes proved decisive. He tried it a couple of times before along the Cooper Straight into Surtees corner. This time he made it work. Up the hill and over the top he went, and in pursuit of Josh Brooks, he ruthlessly cut back the Australian's advantage, but couldn't quite get closer than within a second of the Australian. So for Josh Brooks and Taiko Suzuki, their 3rd victory of the season pushed them back into 3rd place in the championship in the beautiful afternoon sunshine here at Brands Hatch. Brooks won it, 2nd place, but good enough for Alex Lowes to push him back into the championship league ahead of Shaky Byrne.
Yeah, there's some chatting going on here amongst Shane Byrne and Alex Lowes in Parc Fermé, but we'll just grab a quick word with Shane Byrne if we can just stop him having a debrief with his Samsung Honda rival here. Shaky, talk us through that race from your point of view. We'll get to the final few laps in a few moments' time, but how was it overall for you?
Very tricky. I got a pretty good start, and you know, Josh went off in the beginning, and you know, from qualifying we knew he was going to be really, really fast, and I tried my best to stay with him for a few laps, but I was real steady for the first maybe 3 or 4 laps. I just wanted to make sure that everything was cool and, you know, make sure everything was up to temperature before I tried to push. But, you know, my pace then was as good as my pace in qualifying pretty much. And, you know, that was about where I was. So I was pretty happy with the race I rode. But it was one of them races. It would have been really, really easy to throw away 16 points there for sure.
Were you surprised at the pace of Alex towards the end of that race and Josh as well early on?
I think they just kept going at the pace that we'd been at, and you know, Alex come past me, and I tried to hang with him for a bit, and I just thought, you know what, I cannot give away 4 points. That's cool, you know, that's the difference between a first and a second, and you're back in front again. But 16 points, that's not recoverable. So you know, whilst I don't want to say I gave up, I kind of had 10 seconds behind me, and thought, do you know what, 16 points is a whole lot better than none. So we'll go away now and work hard and hope that the conditions are dry tomorrow. If the conditions are dry, I feel fairly confident, but we'll see what weather brings tomorrow.
Good luck for that. Well done, Shaky. Thank you. We've got Shane Byrne, our third place finisher, now second place finisher, Alex Lowe. Wow, the pace over the last few laps was incredible. Were you confident of that pace when you started pushing?
I was a little bit worried because when we first went to the grid, it was totally wet, and then when we did our warm-up lap, it was starting to dry, and there's a race one that's getting drier and drier. And obviously, the first thing I didn't want to do was crash and give the championship away like that. But you know, I sat behind Shaky. I was sixth at the start, and I managed to, you know, get past a few people and get behind Shaky. And half race distance, I thought, I've still got quite a lot of tyre. I was having some moments, but I had quite a lot of tyre left. So I went past him with about 5 laps to go and pushed, and so the speed came from using the tyre a bit more once I was confident that it wasn't going to totally drop off with that amount of time to go. But yeah, you know, it's down to the last day of the year, and yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Get a good night's sleep tonight and see if we can take it to Shaky tomorrow.
Just quickly, how much of that performance was about sending a message to Shane Byrne?
Honestly, none at all. You know, when it's conditions are like that, I just didn't want to lose anything. And you know, people say, oh, you know, when it's dry, you can dig in, you can find that extra bit. When it's like that, you just got to keep your focus and hit your spots. And yeah, obviously, I was always going to try and pass him, but you know, whether sending out a message, I don't know. I've got 3 races or 2 more races to do the best I can, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, look forward to it. Well done, Alex.
Cheers, mate.
Alex Lowe's our second place finisher. Now Roush went up. Wow, the speed, the style, everything. Josh Brooks had it on the Suzuki. If only we'd had these sorts of conditions earlier on in the year, and it would be more about the rider and less about the outright power underneath him.
Yeah, well, if only the results were consistent all the year, you know, we'd be more in the fight. But that's why it feels a bit of an anticlimax. You know, I want to enjoy the emotions of a win, but to not be in the title chase, you know, sort of seems like an anticlimax. But you know, it's great to give the Taiko Suzuki team a good feeling of success and see them on a high at the end of the to finish off the year. We've still got another 2 to go, so we'll see what we can do there as well.
Can't wait to see you out there in the other races. We've got to push on. Thanks very much, Josh.
Yeah, if everyone drives home safely tonight, and if you're going to have a drink, make it a cause. I know I will.
Nice. Oh, dear me. Some sponsorship going on, I think, for an end-of-season party, perhaps. We're going to take a short break while the boys are going up to the podium. When we come back, we'll have the podium, and then we'll get underway with the Motorpoint British Supersport Championship race. See you back here at Brands in 2 minutes' time.
Obstinately wet. Josh Brooks finally nails pole position. Shaky Byrne second, Alex Lowe's third. The 2 contenders side by side. Second row, an astonishing one. Josh Waters, Carl Harris, and the second Halsell Racing Kawasaki of Lee Costello. The third row, headed by Dan Linfoot from James Westmoreland and PJ Jacobson. And the fourth row, Matteo Baiocco, Jakob Smertz, Michael Rutter. The gloves are off. We're ready to race here at Brands Hatch to decide the first serious step along the route of the destiny of the MCE Insurance British Superbike Championship in association with Pirelli for 2013. Number 22, Alex Lowe. Number 68, Carl Harris. In the middle of picture and to the right, you saw that man, Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki's defending champion, Shaky Byrne. On the right-hand side of picture, the man on pole position. Look at the legs stretching back from number 2. Josh Brooks angled towards that early apex to protect his line into Paddock Hill Bend. This is going to be some race. 27 riders on the grid. When the lights go out, we're off. Josh Brooks gets a clean start on the Taiko Suzuki, but look how strong Shaky Byrne was from his inside, and it's Shaky Byrne who grabs the racing line into Paddock Hill Bend with the Halsall Kawasaki's following him through. I reckon it's a Halsall Kawasaki 2-3. Alex Lowe's slips back to 5th place in the initial rush off the line, 18 laps ahead, and James Westmoreland says that this kidney-shaped original Brands Hatch Indy circuit is absolutely lethal.
Yeah, you can see that. Did you?
Championship just a fortnight to go, and now she's got to go through it all again with Alex Lowe's. Can he repeat what his twin brother did a couple of weeks ago and end up as a champion? Well, it's between him and Shaky Byrne. We'd like to compliment our television director, Richard Coventry, because dear Cov's 96th consecutive British Superbike meeting. And he guessed it right when he said that Brands Hatch dates from 1926. So he's learning from me at last. When it was first used as a cycle race track, and a couple of years later motorcyclists started using it as a motorcycle scrambles course. And would you believe it, by 1936 there were 30,000 people coming regularly to see grass track racing around this 1 mile circuit. It got tarmacked after the Second World War, and we're still enjoying brilliant motorcycle racing here. The MCE British Superbike Championship, the final 3 races of the 26th race series. Shaky Byrne with a 1-point advantage over Alex Lowe's. James Ellison in 3rd place, ahead of Josh Brooks on pole position. James Westmoreland and Yuichi Kianari, who's absent. John Kirkham runs in 7th place, 19 points ahead of Tommy Bridewell, with PJ Jacobson 9th and Chris Walker 10th. 11th place for Peter Hickman on the Lloyd's British GB Moto Honda, ahead of Keith Farmer. Dan Linfoot, the 2nd of the GB Moto Hondas. Josh Waters qualifying strongly for Halsall Racing Kawasaki, ahead of Jakob Smertz, Padgett's Honda. Howie Mainwaring, Matteo Baiocco on the Rapido Sport Racing Ducati. Michael Rutter, Barry Burrell and Carl Harris, another strong contender after qualifying on the 2nd row of the grid here. Beautiful conditions at Brands Hatch. The track is remaining. I thought that he would have a go at Shaky Byrne because he seems pretty confident at the moment.
And that's at the corner that we've seen about 15 crashes today. Now that Graham Hill Bend is lethally slippy.
So the quiet man, Wildman Waters, 26-year-old from Mildura in Australia, trying to tackle the current British champion, Shaky Byrne, on the Rapid Solicitors Kawasaki. Alex Lowe's, we've got a fall at that. Oh, it's someone who's fit.
That's Jimmy Poole, I think.
I think it's David Lenortner.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It might be David Lenortner, who was making his first appearance on the Motordeck Spearmint Rhino BMW. Make of that equation what you will.
He was a BM.
Josh Brooks leading the way, and it is then that play. Oh no, it's at the end of the Cooper Straight. Well, and it was David Lenortner who dropped the BMW. Meanwhile, at the front, Alex Lowe's pressing onto the back wheel of Josh Waters. So this is an intriguing contest now. Brooks with a 1.29 second advantage, but what's happening here? We've got Byrne, Waters and Alex Lowe's has closed the gap and must have set a much faster lap than those two on that lap as he gets onto the back wheel of the Halsall Racing Kawasaki. Brooks has crossed the line. 138.315, 2.3 second advantage. He's pulled another second on that lap, but also a fast lap for Alex Lowe's as he closes up on the 2 riders in front of him.
Yeah, you've just got to wonder when you're lapping sort of a second and a half quicker than everybody else in the race, especially when you're talking about people like Lowe's and Byrne.
So Shaky Byrne there. It was interesting when you spoke to him on the grid, James. Suddenly there were nerves showing through there, and that's a pretty rare thing for Shaky.
It is, and that's why I didn't want to stay talking to him, just because it's not fair. You know, he's got to concentrate on what he's doing. I didn't want to say too much to Alex or to Shaky. Let him get on with the job.
I can't imagine what you would have been like. Did you ever have people coming round and trying to quiz you before you went off on a race?
Yes, there was television back then, but it was black and white.
Alex Lowe's plunges through and plunders 3rd place as they launch over the top of Hawthorne Hill and along the Minter Straight. So Alex Lowe's, look at the sun in their eyes with their clear visors at that point. I beg your pardon, the sun's just gone in. It was in their eyes on the last lap.
It was, yeah. It really was bright.
And the amount of rainwater, if you like, that's spraying up from those back wheels. So Alex Lowe's now has his eye on that figure. Now remember, James, the person who finishes ahead between those two will lead the championship at the end of this race.
Absolutely, yeah. Just 1 point between them, so yeah, the difference between 2nd and 3rd will make the difference.
Javier Beltran was saying that number 22, Alex Lowe's, on that blue Samsung Honda, hadn't been too happy with the general bike setup and feel of things during the course of this weekend so far.
Yeah,
But
do
you know what a racer he is when he gets out there and the flag drops.
Yeah, do you know sometimes you go to a place, you're nervous, championship at stake, it's been building up for quite a while now. The bike can be exactly the same, but you're just not happy with it because you're not as loose, you're not as relaxed with it. The bike can feel different, even though you've been here already this year before and you've got a setup that you think is going to work. What I'm saying is that it might be Alex's kind of, the way he's riding, that's making the difference. See Alex Lowe's lighting up the rear coming out of Druids, and that's what they're saying. It's this Indy circuit. The thing is, you know, they're used for different things. The long circuit's never hardly used. The short circuit, this bit is used a lot. Every single day, track days, car launches, etc. So the grip levels alter.
And as they disappear over the hilltop, Shaky Byrne in second place, Josh Waters right behind him in third place. He feels he hasn't done himself justice this season. The double Australian Superbike champion out to prove a point as we see his teammate Lee Costello nabbed by Alex Lowe's as they go up the hill into Hawthorne Bend.
Yeah, and it always amazes me how differently different tracks dry. You know, if this was Assen with the same sunshine on it and same wind, it would be dry by now.
Since the rain stopped, the breeze has really kicked up,
It has, yeah.
And you can see how low the sunshine is as they come along the Minter Straight. Look how wet it is there under the trees, dropping down to Stirling's Bend. So on the first lap of 18, this the first of 3 races across this weekend, remember, to decide the outcome of the British Superbike Championship. And at the moment, the leader, Josh Brooks, has taken off at the front on the Tyco Racing Suzuki. There he goes, keeling round onto the Brabham Straight. He completes the first lap with a ball wave of water ahead of Shaky Byrne, Josh Waters, Alex Lowe's, Lee Costello next up, Chris Walker, always a bit of a devil in damp conditions, in 6th place ahead of Jacobson. Ellison's come through from 14th to 8th on the first lap for Milwaukee Yamaha, I beg its pardon. And Linfoot's got a shocking start after qualifying so well. He's back in 9th place. Carl Harris back in 10th.
Waters.
And Waters tackling